And our next guest on the Rink Shinks podcast, drafted by the Boston Bruins in the second round, number 45 overall in the 2003 entry level draft. I would like to shake the scout's hand of the Boston Bruins staff of this guy, but a 6-time Selke Award winner, league record, 12-time nominee. Again, another league record, 2-time Olympic gold medal winner, and a 2011 Stanley Cup champ, and my former teammate, Patrice Bergeron. Welcome to the podcast, my man.
Thanks, Mott. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, Patrice, this is great, and it's funny because when Motts and I, when we kicked this off, and we're over 140 episodes in, one of our kind of taglines has always been, just watch Patrice Bergeron. Like, you want your son or daughter to be a really good hockey player. We want you to pay attention, turn on the Bruins game, and watch them. So it's a real treat. And being Boston guys, we couldn't be more excited to have you on.
Oh, thank you so much. It means a lot. Thank you. I'm happy to be here, as I said. So I'm trying to learn from, I should say, Motts, actually. He's the guy to watch.
well, let's take it to just the Boston experience right off the rip here. You played as an 18-year-old, and I just want to kind of get this out there. Can you remember two guys that you played with in the lockout year that always wore Boston hats and like die-hard Sox fans and willing to do anything for the Sox? And you gave them a little bit of credit, and if you don't remember their names, that's all right. Because
from my team back in, oh my God, yeah. So Keith O'Coin, there's Chris Diamond, there's Pat Leahy. There's a lot of guys from around Boston. And that was like the year, obviously, they came back against the Yankees and won the World Series. So it was special. It was special to actually like live that with them, through their eyes basically. And I remember like going to some teammates. We would gather at night and watch the Sox game, right, on days off or whatever, and they were glued to the TV. And I just remember that. And for myself, it was my second year around. Like, so I was kind of getting into like, Boston sports and what it really meant to the fans and to the city. So it was special to experience that at that age, for sure.
Yeah, another guy that Keith was like boys with, and who I was very close with, Dave Gove, who unfortunately passed away.
Yes,
those two were, joined at the hip. And I was talking to Coiner today, and he's like, "Yeah, ask Bergie like who got him to wear a Sox hat and like get him going with the Sox."
He's right, actually. Yeah, those guys definitely did. It was, Brandon Walsh was there too. Walsh, was, so. A lot of guys were big fans.
Yeah, no, it's great. And obviously, you became a big part of that history, but I wanted to rewind it and talk about, you growing up, obviously being a Canadian kid, but what was your first experiences in the game of hockey, and how did you fall in love with it?
Yeah. So my first experience was basically, I was 5 when I started, playing like, organized hockey, I guess, and to learn to play, if you will, to learn to skate, whatever that is. Because I have an older brother. He's a couple of years older, and he was playing himself. So, and at that age, like your older brother is always kind of like your model, and you want to do whatever he does. So that's how I kind of got started. And back home, growing up in a small town in Canada, Quebec City, like it's. Hockey, obviously the winters are definitely like pretty, there's a lot of snow. There's, it's cold.
Pretty cold, that's for sure.
Exactly. Very cold.
I was trying to explain that the other night too, because my youngest team's kind of in that Pee Wee Quebec thing. So I was talking to my in-laws, and I'm like, oh yeah, if we go, like, everybody should try to come. And they're like, well, is it really cold? I'm like, there's like restaurants made out of ice. So
yeah.
There's
a hotel made out of ice. So,
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. But just to put things in perspective, you're gonna freeze your butt off over there. But it's obviously like one of those things where like kids and like families and we would grow up kind of watching the game and watching hockey and wanting to play and playing street hockey and whatnot. So that's kind of how I started playing and got into it. And then yeah, from the get go, I kind of fell in love with it. To be honest with you, I kind of wanted more and more and more. And as I said, played street hockey, played pond hockey, and back home, like we have like those neighborhood rinks where like every small neighborhood they have their its own like outdoor ice, which it's open to anyone that wants to go. So after school, I would just drop my bag. Me and my brother would just drop our bags off at home and be gone till because there's no lights at night. So it would be a couple hours, then back home for dinner.
That's great. I mean, you played youth hockey for Sillery St. Foy, minor hockey. Can you talk about any like early influences? Your parents obviously were a huge influence in your, say development, but like anyone outside of your parents as far as minor hockey that you can look to as part of your development?
I think, first and foremost, probably my brother, to be honest with you. Like he was like, as I said, he was a role model for me all the way throughout, but also he was just there in support. He was there to kind of, yes, we had our battles, but it was always like he was always helping me get better and teaching me, but also like encouraging me to not give up, I guess, and to like, there's times where during you're playing youth hockey and like there's guys that are bigger, stronger, they kind of like throw you around on the ice, and you come back from the game, you're like, like, are you kidding me? Like, is this, like, can I still do this? And like, he would always be there to kind of like give me a pat on the back, and instead of like kind of, he would always be positive, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And it was kind of cool to have him, as a mentor, growing up, and yeah, it was. I mean, coaches, a lot of coaches also helped me. I think that's how you kind of get into the game, right? It's like there's one that like I was playing like summer hockey. You would play with like it's like AAA whatever, and it's like kids from like different teams, and over the summer you just kind of have fun, and you go and you go in the pool, then you go to the game. It's like the best time to play hockey, right? It sounds weird, but it's just like it was just so much fun. Like and that coach, I do remember that he was like, it's just the way that he explained, the way that he taught me. It was always about fun. He was always making everything about like us enjoying the game instead of like making it like hard on. He would be hard on us, but like in a way that we were able to kind of learn and grow and still have a smile on our face, which was pretty special. And I think it's something that as kids, playing the game, and as parents especially, is always an important reminder.
Yeah. How many years between you and your brother?
2 years. Yeah.
Did you share a room growing up?
We did not, but we did. If that makes any sense. We would always kind of like when the parents were sleeping, we would kind of sneak. Like he had like a Nintendo on his side, so
Nice.
like once the parents were sleeping, sometimes I would just sneak into his room and kind of play for a few hours. So it was that was cool. Yeah, we had a good relationship.
That's great. Yeah, because I had a brother who was 5 years older, very similar, where it's not 2 years, but it, 5's a little bit bigger gap. But like, I learned so much from him. He was one of my role models, and, he allowed me to hang out with his buddies. And like, if I had to play pond hockey or street hockey with those guys, I had to elevate my game. And, so that's,
sure.
So
they probably didn't let you, like give you any free pass, right? So it's like you learn fast. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So that's awesome to hear.
Yeah, no, that's it's great stuff, and obviously being an older brother and having, I think I share some, like I don't know what the proper wording is, but like I guess proudness, right? And obviously having Keith being 3 years younger than me, I'd like to think, especially in the younger years, I kind of beat him up a lot, and but it made him who he was, and I'm sure your brother feels the same way.
No, for sure. And it's so true. I think like I relate to both of you guys when you're saying that, is that I was hanging out with my brother's buddies and him obviously, and but they're older, but they wouldn't, let me have any like, giving me any chances or, like going easy on me. So like
No free
I got beat up.
passes.
Exactly. I got beat up a few times for sure, like from just playing with them, and
Yeah.
whether it was football or hockey or
Yeah.
whatever that was.
Yeah, and if you start like, yeah, I'm sure you had a bunch of like muffled, cries in your mitten,
Yeah.
so you could still keep playing.
You don't show it. Yeah.
No, you can't show it.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, you touched on it too, and the fun, right? And now I know you have 4 kids of your own. Are they skating? Are they into But I'd like to talk just quickly about that. Like, where are they at? And I know living here in the Boston area, right? The youth hockey experience for everybody is a little bit crazy. So I wasn't sure if you have had any experience in it and what your takes are on it, and kind of your path for your kids.
So I'm just kind of getting into it right now, to be honest with you. So my oldest is going to turn 8 soon, so he's still mites,
Mm.
and he didn't want to play before. He did learn to skate like when he was 5. In the last 2 years, he didn't play, so now he wanted to play again this year. So he's just starting, and then my third kid, my other boy, he's doing to learn to play. He's going to start like soon, learn to play.
Mm.
So I'm not quite there, but I guess I've done a few games and a lot of practices so far with my oldest. And yeah, it's definitely like, um, it's intense, but it's been a lot of fun. Honestly, like the
Yeah.
coaches, the parents have been like great. And it seems like my son is really liking the, um, I guess the bond that they're
Yeah.
already establishing as a team, and it's the first time for him to be on a team, and I think he really enjoys that.
Yeah.
I don't know if he loves hockey so far, but at least like he likes going because he like people are nice with him, and like it's been a good learning curve for him. So it's been good, but like it's as I always tell the kids if I'm close to them like on because I do go on the ice to help out sometimes for practices, and I'm like we're just here to have fun, like it's like that it's always the one thing is like, hey, like where's your smile, like I want to see that smile, because it's to me like at that age that's all we're really trying to accomplish, and eventually obviously like you want to get more specific, but at that age like come on, let's just have
Yeah.
fun.
No, that's great that you're getting involved, but I just want to say, just be aware. It's a slippery slope.
I know.
Once you
It's
step
gonna
on that
come hard
ice,
and fast.
yeah, it's gonna get going pretty quick. And if you're gonna be doing some other stuff, like personally, for your own, time and
Yeah.
management, whatever you're gonna do, for yourself, just know that this could be a full-time job.
Oh, I can imagine. I can only imagine. I'm telling you, it's already like, as I said, it's mites. It's like
Yeah.
3-4 times a week, and I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah,
Right now,
exactly.
Yeah. They're practicing more than you did for the last 20 years in your
Exactly.
career.
Put the brakes a bit.
Yeah,
Exactly.
just pump them a bit.
Oh, it's classic. It's classic. But to that point, with you getting back to yourself personally, and obviously having such a great career, but what was your like youth hockey experience like? Was it strictly fun? Were you like the kid that was at 12 years old was really, really good, or did it take a little bit longer? What was your kind of path like?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think like in my younger years, maybe like before that, but before 12, like, when I was like in, was it squirts here that, it's
Yep.
mites and then squirts. Yeah. So like around that age, like I was like a big kid for my age at that age. And then it kind of went downhill after that. But like, so at that point, like I was bigger, stronger. I was, skating well for that level. So I was a good player. But then like as we got older, around 12, I was extremely like I didn't grow at all, and then I was small, and that's when like like it gets a little bit more competitive, and then 13, I think, or 14, you start hitting, and I was still small, and so I was a good player, but I wasn't like the best player on my team, nor I was the best player in the league. So I think like it was a lot of which it seemed like it forced a lot of hard work. I think it instilled a lot of hard work and perseverance in me, because I had to kind of work that much harder to get to the puck and to keep it and to. But there are some years where it was definitely a battle, whether it was within my team or against against other teams, just to be to have my ice time, or to even like feel like I should keep going. I think there's times where you're second guessing yourself, and it's not always just a straight and arrow, and it's going well. There's ups and downs, and there's doubts, and but yeah, it's almost like as I got older, I got taught, like I grew a little bit around 15, 16, and then I got drafted in junior hockey. And still I got cut when I was 15, I got cut from midget AAA. 16, I got cut from my junior team. So like, I think all those experiences kind of helped me get better and grow and really work harder, work on my game. And I always thought that, everything happens for a reason. There's things that, at the moment you can be frustrated if you want, but then like, I think the best decision is always to kind of like take it, with your head up high and take it on the chin and learn and realize it's not pointing fingers, it's really more what I can do to be better. So that was kind of the approach that I had at that age. And then after that, it kind of went fast from like 16 to 18, like in a span of a couple of years. It was a pretty big jump for sure.
Now, as far as like, when you're cut from those teams, did you think that you had to like do something different, or did you press that thinking, because like there's a lot of kids in that space right now where they might get cut,
Yep.
or they're in that space, then might not be getting looked at from a school or whatever it is. Did you try to just stay true to your game? Did you always think that you're a very responsible player, 200-foot player that can score in the scoring areas, but like still cared so much about, not allowing anyone to get, any offense when you're on the ice? Or were you cheating the game then, and then you learned how to play that, say, 200-foot game?
No, I think it's a good question. I think at that time I was still trying to play an all-around game. It's always been kind of the way that I was seeing the game and wanting to play the game, I guess. Was always taking pride in my defense and obviously wanted to produce and have the offensive numbers. But like, to be honest with you, like at that time when those two occasions where I got cut, I did ask, like, the second time I did ask the coach, like, what, do you think I need to improve? What's like, because it's one thing to tell you like, hey, you're going back to the next team, the lower level team, and it's fine. Like, but then like, why? What's the reason why? Like, was it my speed? So like at that time they said like my speed, my shot, and obviously I needed to get stronger. I was just not ready, right? So, and it was great to hear, because then it's like, okay, those are the things I need to work on. So then at that point I was like, okay, I was trying to I hired actually a power skating coach in the summer, try to do a couple doing some more lessons, and I worked on my nutrition to try to kind of gain some weight and go in the gym, get stronger. So I got in touch with a personal trainer that that just worked on my strength and get in the gym and try to work out a little bit more, because at that time you don't really you try to be disciplined if you don't know what you're doing, right? So it's like
right.
You don't even talk about the gym, because it's like in the summer you're playing soccer, you're playing other sports, or you're just hanging out, right? That's kind of like, that was the mindset anyways for me growing up. Like we put the skates in the closet, and then we're just trying something new and other sports, and I think it's a good thing to have. And I'm not saying to not do that and not play hockey, 12 months a year. I'm just saying, like, once you get older and you get closer to like goals and you set yourself, like, that hockey's your team or your sport, then that's when I think it's important to put in the extra work and to really go in depth into what you think or what others also think is needed for your game to get better.
No, that's a great point, obviously, and it really is. But we talk about the, modeling your game after people. Like, who did Patrice Bergeron look up to and say, "Hey, I want to play like"?
Mm-hmm. So I grew up a Nordiques fan, and I was a huge Peter Forsberg fan.
Nice.
Yeah.
Joe Sakic was also like a big role model for me as far as like.
Hey, Bergie, do you remember what
yeah.
number he was his rookie year?
Who, Forsberg?
No, Sakic.
Yeah, he was 89, right?
88.
88.
Yeah, close. Yeah, one off. That's fine. No one knows that. No one even. Yeah.
I missed that. Yeah. That's true. I was close, but yeah, I do remember that actually.
Mott's just stomping people.
But yeah, like Sakic was just like his demeanor always looked so calm, and even off the ice, he was a great role model for any kid really wanting to play the game. And Forsberg was just like the way that he played. He was like the reverse hit and his creativity and his work ethic. And so I guess I don't want to say that I modeled my game around them because they're obviously special players, and I don't think they had a unique style, but they were guys that I really looked up to.
Yeah, those guys are two good guys, and like I would say it's like a combination. Like really, like you say, you don't model it, after these guys, but as a young player, you're looking, the Nordiques playing out of the Colisée, like it's like, like you got this, great venue, like it, like when Quebec was going, it was great as a young kid. Just like the Bruins for me, like growing up watching, I was looking at Ray Bourque and like trying to beat Cam Neely sometimes and trying to beat some kids up on the playground. But it's like, at the end of the day, you model your game after certain plays, and I think that's like an appropriate. It's kind of cool that you say that, because that's an appropriate kind of depiction of your game on some level, right?
Absolutely.
Like both guys are defensively responsible, could offensively can do their things, and that's pretty cool. That's really nice to hear. But just to have the access to see those type of players at that time of your development coming through.
That's great. And it makes a difference too. And that's something that I've always kind of like I did not take that lightly, meaning that like I know that there's kids that are, grew up in this area or that were Bruins fans, wherever they are, that I think it's an important message to send to like try to, do the right things and like try to, be a good role model for them. And I think it's not always easy to do. I know like it at times like it can get distracting for guys, and there's a lot of stuff going on, but I think like to always have that in the back of your head that, what, there's kids that are watching, there's kids after practice that are, hanging out and hoping for just a little like a high or a signature, whatever that is. You know what I mean? It's like I think it's something that like I know for me, like it had a huge impact, like in Quebec City, like to have a chance. I actually had a chance to back then they would do like skates with like a Nordique, like every like minor hockey team would skate with one player, and the rink where we skated at, my minor hockey team had Sakic come over.
No way.
Which was, pretty amazing for all the guys that you could have picked out. You get, the captain of the team. So that had a huge impact. You know what I mean? So like that stuff is like, it might not mean anything for you when you meet someone, but then for them, it's like, it does like resonate and have a much bigger impact than you might think. So I think it's always something that I always thought it was important to remind yourself as a pro athlete to try to do. I know it's not easy, and you don't want to the perfection doesn't exist, but you're trying to, as much as possible to at least, do the right thing.
Yeah, that's that's a great message, and it's really important, especially we have a lot of kids and parents that listen to this and can relate. And you talked about, there's no perfect person, but there's just that impact, just that going out and saying hi and showing people that. And I think that's what makes hockey guys so special, right? Is they have no problem kind of jumping out on the ice, playing shinny with guys, joking around, having fun, putting a kid's smile on the face, and which is huge. And you don't realize it at the time, maybe, but as you look back, and I think that's unbelievable self-awareness to just be thinking of that stuff as you're playing. And it's a great message to send. I wanted to touch on next, just kind of that transition to the queue. You talked about getting cut, obviously, even in the Quebec draft, you weren't necessarily like a first round pick or anything like that. But what did that, full season in the Quebec League do for you, playing in Acadie Bathurst or as Motts likes to call it, Arcadia Bathurst,
Arcadia.
Right? But then leading into that, that 2003 draft, which is pretty legendary with all the names that are on that list.
Yeah, no. So basically, as you said, I got drafted as a 15-year-old. I was a fifth round pick, and went to training camp that same year and got cut, went back down to a lower level, and came back the second year as a 17-year-old. And that year was had a big impact on me. The coach that was there, Real Payment, he was harping a lot about defense, actually, about face-offs. Those were all things that for his centerman, he was like, if you want to play, you gotta take pride in your draws. You gotta take pride in, keeping the puck or getting the puck out or keeping the puck away from the back of your net. So for me, it was a great year, of development and getting better, but also learning a little bit more how it might translate in the pros. And to be honest with you, at that point, as a 17-year-old, I was a rookie playing in the queue. I did not expect to. I was still not thinking about the NHL, if that makes any sense. It's at that point, I'm just trying to stick in the queue, right? I'm just trying to make an impact on my team and be a good player in that league. So it was fun. It was, you're basically like a teenager still, and playing with a bunch of
knuckleheads.
I was going to say clowns. It's just a lot of fun. The atmosphere is great. We're just trying to have a good time and hanging out after practices. And we used to all live in billet families, so and they all kind of, some of them were close to each other, so we would hang out and watch TV and just really being ridiculous and just, it's just like that team bonding. It's hard to, you guys know, it's just hard to experience other than being on a team, and especially at that age, because you have nothing else going on, right? So after every practice, after games, you just kind of always kind of connect.
Well, you got Bruno Gervais, who's one of the better dudes out there, and
exactly,
he's the best. I played with him in Long Island for a couple of years, and just a sweetheart of a guy, number one. But he just likes, the nonsense as well. Just as a 17-year-old, I can't imagine him. But
he was the captain of our team, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I can
imagine. But awesome guy. But so a quick question about that time. Again, your coach. Is it Pemont? Yeah. So that's a pretty big influence, I would say, for sculpting you enough to understand those pressure areas on the ice, understanding just as a team. But then everyone kind of takes a message differently from a coach. But if you absorb the right messages and apply it to your game, you're going to be valuable to the team, number one, and a coach has reliability in you, and you're going to get more ice time. So at the end of the day, like the points are the points, and everyone looks at the points, and the Q is like a high scoring league at the time. And, you're around a point per game, a little bit over, but you're a valuable part of that team, and the coach relies on you. And I'm so happy that the people that were watching you, number one, the Bruins, were able to identify that and, pick you up in the second round. But you did not have to go outside of your kind of like comfort level or your zone to play both offense and quality defense and be a reliable source for the team and a value add. So did that come from the coach, or do you think you internalized some of his coaching and just applied it to your person and just in your game?
Yeah, I think, I think his coaching guided me towards like what, he was looking for, what is more successful for the league, for me to, to actually like make an impact or have an impact. But I think like also for myself, like it kind of suited the way that I was comfortable playing the game.
Yeah.
If we're talking about face-offs, we're talking about, like taking care of a D zone. And at that time, like I was still, as I said, I was a rookie, and it's not like I had like all this pressure on me or all eyes were on me, right? I was more like under the radar. There's other guys that were talked about more, which kind of helped me kind of find, my footing and getting ready and really like learning how to really play the game. It's not pros, but it's still like the highest level for us in Canada, right? So it's like the pace of the game changed a lot for me, like from the year before to that year. So like when I started as a rookie, I was on the fourth line, I kind of grinded to get up in the lineup over time as the year went on. And I think it really helped me. And actually it's funny because like, as you mentioned, like the coach, like Real, he a couple of times he kind of gave me like, he was hard on me, like he in a good way. But he was like, if you think like you'll ever like play in the pros with this or that, type of play, or he was always like really like grooming guys to be pros, grooming guys to make the next level. He was doing he's, French Canadian, and he would do practices in English to kind of prepare us to like if guys would move on. So it was always like a preparation to what's to come for us in hockey if we do want to make it to the next level. So it was a really good learning year for me, and it was special.
You talked about that pressure and kind of flying under the radar, and I think now everything with the way social media works and all that stuff, it's just like everything's the world's in fast forward, which is crazy. But what was the draft expectations, and from your family, like what was the pressure, or was there pressure, or was it just like, hey, Patrice, go and have fun and figure it out? Like, because I think nowadays, I mean, Motts and I talk about it all the time. There's like so much pressure at such a young age, and it's like kids are, they're thinking about being in the NHL at 18 years old, and it seems like talking to you, you're like, it was kind of like under the radar, and then boom, next thing you know, you're there. So I guess that's a bunch of different questions all in one, but no, I guess you know what I mean.
No, it's great. I think like as it went on, I think like as I mentioned before, like I was a rookie, right? So there was no expectations. I maybe like after like 25 to 30 games at the time, like I kind of had like I just started having an agent. So like they were starting to kind of ask if they could represent me at that time. Obviously, when you're playing juniors, they don't do much, but it's more like for the future. And he called so I got an agent, which was Kent Hughes and Phil Cavalier. And then Phil calls me and he's like, Chicago's likes your game. Like he's they're looking at you. And I'm like, Chicago who? Blackhawks, what are you talking about? And I'm like,
in the U.S.?
I was so surprised. I was like, what?
Is Chicago in the queue? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was like,
Am I getting
what?
traded?
Like the Chicago Mission? Like, what are we talking
Yeah.
about here? So it's like junior A,
Right.
but like it was really like surprising to me to even hear that. And yeah, I was shocked that teams were even like, or scouts were even like looking at me and considering, um, maybe drafting me because it was, as I said, like there was not on my radar at the like in that moment because I was more like concentrating on just like playing the right way for my team and my coach, and like I was more like trying to be in the moment, like is what I'm trying to say. Like I was like so in the moment that I wasn't really looking ahead, and then when that started happening more and more and more, then you're asking about the expectation of the draft, like after that year, because that was my draft year.
Yeah.
Um, like if I kind of go back, like I started playing less, having less ice time to like playing a little bit more. So by the end, talking to my agents, they were like, well, we're seeing you, like third to fourth round, and then like by the playoffs, I was up to like a second round, like, I guess I was like 29th, I think, North American skater, which like if you bring in the European, you're kind of like second round, right? You're right there, like 2nd round. So yeah, so that was the expectations. But like to be honest with you, it was shocking midway through when like my agent was calling saying that there's teams that wants to, and at that time scouts, they just like want to talk to you after a game, and they just kind of like they want to see what kind of personality that you have, who you are as a person, and kind of ask a few questions, and yeah, it kind of snowballed after that, where I was like, okay, like this is for real, and this is my dream, so like I'm gonna really putting all the things that I can do, are putting all the work to really try to help my chances to succeed, right? So,
Right.
But like from my family, I think that was like the other part of your question. Like I did not sense, it was more support, to be honest with you. Like they were just very supportive of, and I go back to my brother. We talked about that, growing up. Like he would come and watch games because, like, we're playing like I was playing New Brunswick, which is like a province outside of Quebec. So it was about a 7-8 hour drive from my hometown. So they wouldn't come to many like home games for us, but they would come to a lot of games. We would play Quebec City, we'd play, Montreal, and all the teams within an hour within, proximity of my hometown. So like they would come to a lot of games on the road. And I remember like a few games where like, it didn't go my way or our way as a team. And I felt kind of down, and, he was always there to kind of, my parents as well. But, obviously when your brother speaks, it's almost like it means that much more. Right. So he was always there to kind of like pump me up and make me realize, where I was the year before. And now that I've accomplished a lot, I guess, over the course of like a short period of time. So you just enjoy, like, who cares about, one game, so.
No, I love you saying that, about your experience, because we do talk about this on the podcast quite a bit about staying in the present, whether it be that practice, that game. You see these kids, again, like the social media kind of, and the phones, like it really does accelerate, their brains a little bit to not staying focused on what is important.
Yeah.
And, in that practice, like, and people ask me, I'm like, I just want to be the best in that practice. Like I deliver the puck on time to the better player, or just in that drill, like passing, just if you can focus and make those passes. But like, it's really good to hear from you because that's how you lived it. Right. And like, that's very important for our listeners to hear, coaches, parents, kids that listen, because you're so well respected on what you did after. But like, that's what you were going through at these, impressionable ages. So as you get through this, so that draft was down in Tennessee. Did you go down to the draft? Did you fly down? Yeah.
So we were not supposed to go. And then, again, I go back to speaking to my agents, and they were like, I think, like no matter what, like you're going to get drafted, whether it's second, third, fourth, fifth, it doesn't, we don't know, but I think you should go just to experience it. And then I spoke to my parents and what they thought. And, we were just like, oh, let's make it a weekend. We've never been to Nashville. We've barely made it across the border, to be honest with you. We went to Maine. That was like, or Florida. So, so you know what I mean? Like that was like, taking the airplane, and like it was cool, like to be out there and to experience the whole thing. But then it was like, to be honest with you, like looking back, I got extremely nervous when I got there, because there's like all those big names that were supposed to be, those top 10 picks and whatnot, and the media attention, and then I was like, okay, like this is real, like this is like the NHL, something I've dreamed of my whole life. So that that weekend was, I said that we were going to make a weekend out of it. Like I was very nervous. Like I don't think I really enjoyed myself all that much until like that draft day and when my name came out. But yeah, it was cool to be there and be there in person, right? So I think looking back, I would have regretted it not to be there.
I think we just came up with like a T-shirt or something, like Maine, a Quebec kids, Florida.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
but you guys, I'm sure you guys have gone to Maine.
That should be the state slogan for Maine.
Yeah, Quebecois, Florida.
Like you go to Maine and there's like legit like Quebec city license, Quebec license plate and Ontario license plate everywhere. Like there's
right.
It's just like. That's what we do. Like we just drive down and cross the border, and we think we're in Florida.
That's amazing. I love it.
It's awesome.
And the water is freezing.
It's freezing up there.
It is, and there's some beautiful places up in Maine. It really is. It's gorgeous, but it sure as hell it's Florida for like maybe 30 days. In terms of weather, like
weather, not water temp.
No, exactly. Oh, that's hilarious. Well, after the draft, obviously, it's huge. And then kind of your first training camp. I mean, I can only imagine you talk about being in the present, but walking in that locker room for the first time at your first NHL training camp.
Yeah. So, that was quite the experience, just like, you fly down there and for myself, like I was just nervous to speak. Like I couldn't really speak good English, and I was going around, I was able to kind of like work my way, and people were able to kind of like understand what I was trying to get to, but like it was not easy for me. It was like nerve-wracking to get there and like to actually have to do everything in English. So that was like the first thing that I do remember. And then like you got to remember that it's rookie camp for the first like 5-6 days, and then the veterans show up. So like the first few days, like there was a lot of guys that were all trying to make an impact and make a name for themselves, and it was rookie camp, and it was and back then, like you guys know, like it's kind of a gauntlet. Like you get on the ice and there's like 4 fights before like the puck is dropped in the inter squad game. Like you're like, oh my god, this is real. Like you're like, oh, that's no joke. So like that was kind of my welcome to the NHL kind of moment. I was like, okay, like that's big boys that mean business. I need to really like kind of make sure I'm ready for this. So it was a cool experience. And then like once like the big dogs arrived, it was very special just to see like Joe, Thornton, that I watched on TV. Well, all these guys I watched on TV the year before, but like Joe was the big name, right? He was the guy that was like doing the CCM commercials that I do remember. He was the guy that was like on the posters, and so it was like just to interact with them and like to be around like those guys and to kind of watch them and try to learn as much as I could was pretty special. But then like I had to kind of remind myself that I had to still like compete and try to make a name, make an impact and leave a mark for the scouts and for the coaching staff and management to say that what, like this kid might go back in juniors, but at least like we have like we didn't make a mistake on this guy, like he's for real. So that was kind of my goal when I got there, and then things kind of like unfolded where I was able to stay. But yeah, it was great. The guys were so nice and so respectful, and especially when you're young, like you don't know how it's gonna play out, and you feel a little intimidated. But like I gotta say, like we always say that hockey guys are awesome and so welcoming, and that was the case that year for sure.
Was there one guy in particular that kind of took you in under their wing and kind of helped you a bit, like navigate the city? Number one, you know, you said the language barrier was just kind of like getting going. Like, yeah, I'm sure you could understand more than you could maybe speak, or vice versa. Like, you know, there's a lot of slang here in Boston, so
Yeah,
It's not.
I didn't know that at the time though. I thought-
Throw the Boston accent on top of everything, and
well, it's like I studied, you know, Parisian book French, and then I go to, you know, Quebec with, you know, some of my minor league
it's like-
teammates, and it's just completely different.
yeah,
But,
exactly.
Yeah,
No,
so
for
it's
sure.
just like the dialect, and but if was there one player in particular that you can, you know,
Yeah,
kinda
Marty.
think of?
You know, Marty Lapointe was
Nice,
my
nice.
obviously, you know, French Canadian, but he helped me. He took me under his wing from the moment that I met him. Once the veterans showed up to the last day, you know, of our season, you know, I stayed with him and his family.
Mm.
He was unbelievable. With you know, like I showed up. I'm supposed to go back to juniors. I brought clothes for like maybe 10 days, right? And then sure enough, like I just kept like playing more exhibition games, and then like you sign a contract and you stay, and he's like, well, you know, come over to my house, and you know, you can, there's an extra bedroom, and you can just, you know, stay with us, um and you can figure out after that. And I ended up staying with them the whole year, and it was the best thing that could have happened to me, because I wasn't ready to really, you know, like go out on my own. It was more like I was still kind of learning, and I was trying to really like concentrate on being a good pro, and again, like for me, it was my opportunity to make it, so I didn't want to, you know, mess it up. So like for him to do that, and I could only concentrate on hockey, and it was, you know, I'll never be able to, you know, to thank him enough for what he and his family have done for me that year. And but again, you know, I needed like a driver's license, a bank account, like all the stuff that you
Yeah.
don't even think about. But
Right.
like I just, like, you know, the first few checks, like they had to like give me a check, but I didn't have like a bank account to put the money into. I'm like, you know, like I don't know what to do here. Like someone and then it's the pros, right? So you kind of like, you got to figure it out, and you become an adult pretty fast, like when that happens.
Is that where Razor picked you up on the Zamboni?
Yeah, exactly. That was my ride, actually, like to go to games.
Oh, so that's such a
like, I
great
need a
story.
bank account. We need a Zamboni commercial for Fleet Bank or something, right?
Oh my god! So like they actually, like, whoever like thought about the video, he asked Boints and Jumbo to do that commercial, and they
Yeah.
he's like, so here's the idea, and they
They're
both
like-
start
they're like this.
laughing.
They're like, not a chance.
Oh my god! They're like, get Berge and Razor to do it. You know what I mean?
It was like couple
Oh, dude,
rooks.
exactly. So I was like, okay.
Oh, that's how you got on there?
Yeah, that was exactly what it was.
Oh, that's
They went the
hilarious.
#1 draft. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
awesome.
That is
Awesome.
great. I could see Joe saying that too. Be like, oh, that's
Especially with that laugh too. Right?
Yeah.
He's got that laugh where,
Yeah.
you know, like you can hear him from a mile away, and he's like, as soon as he heard the script, he starts laughing. He's like, okay, Berge will do it. That guy can't even speak English. Okay.
that's so. Oh, that's great.
That's fantastic. No, it's cool. I just saw, speaking of Marty Lapointe, I was watching a video. It was like a behind the draft thing, and talk about still ripped up, like he could still
my God.
play. Oh my God. I'm like, I was like, that guy's, it's jacked.
I think he got bigger, actually.
Yes. I was
He's
like, I
probably in
don't
better
remember
shape
him.
now.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't remember. Like, obviously, he was such a good player and was so, you know, like big and strong and tough, and obviously watching, right? But I never had seen him up close, and I'm watching the video of it, and I'm like, no, that can't be him. I was crazy, but that's
Impressive, yeah.
it's super cool, and I think that, you know, and times changed. I mean, God, I was kind of giggling to myself just looking at like Michael Nylander, Ted Donato, guys like, all right, so now fast forward, you're still playing in the league, and these guys are like veterans at this point, right? Like their kids it's not like their kids just walked in and even Marty Lapointe, right? His kids are playing at Michigan and been around. I'm like, oh my God, that's it is funny to see.
Oh my God. But even like that Lysell is an 03 birth year. And I got drafted in 03. So as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh my God, like that's like talking about feeling old, like,
well,
so you're right.
I think Ovi had a video this week that came
with
out,
the rookie,
and he's just like, Jesus, I'm getting old. Something.
It's so true. It's kind of a friendly reminder every year when you get to training camp, and well, as you said, Nylander and Teddy Donato, and then like I play with Chris Kelly now. He was coaching, like
right.
It's like, oh my God, like like it's time flies.
Yeah, but that's like the cool part about the game. Like everyone wants to stay in the game and like continue to kind of provide. And like you said, like hockey guys are like the best. But as you got going and you kind of got your footing, you kind of had a couple down years as a group, as an organization, and but like you're a constant throughout the whole time. And like I was gonna say this, I said it to BY earlier, but I'm a Bruins fan. Like even though I was playing, and so you had a tough injury, right? Kind of a cheap shot, bang your head a bit, and I ended up fighting that kid years later. Not only because he jabbed Marty Brodeur, but because he knocked you out, and the Bruins fans were upset about it. So I fought Randy Jones for you.
I knew I loved you, Mutt. Always hear from me, yeah.
It was only 3 years later, but whatever.
You took a number, Mott.
I did. I took a number. I have a memory like an elephant. But at the end of it, though, like, so can you talk about just like coming back from the injury and kind of like gaining, again, that confidence of taking a hit, giving a hit, because like kids get injuries and sometimes they're a little hesitant. Can you just talk about that kind of like, coming back from a very significant injury?
Yeah, no, it's definitely challenging. I think it's challenging physically, obviously, but then like mentally as well, and maybe more so. Like once you're like inches from like playing or getting closer to playing, then like it's the mental side, right? That's like, okay, like it's been a while, like am I still like the same player? Am I still fine to get back out there? And like, and I think that's like the hurdle sometimes, like the biggest hurdle at the end for a lot of guys, whether it's concussion or whatever the injury, if it's a big one, as you said. So, I think Doc Durant was on your podcast before, and he was instrumental in helping me, coming back. And because the next year, so I missed that whole year. I think it was early in my season. It might have been the 9th or the 10th game that I got hurt, missed the whole year. The next year I come back, I'm starting the year and I'm playing, I'm feeling good. But then like I got hurt again that year, but then I wasn't really producing. I wasn't really, like how I wanted to play. It was kind of like a tough transition for me to kind of get back out there. And it was challenging mentally because like you're used to X and you don't feel like you're getting there. So it's so that's when like I kind of like seeked help and Doc kind of got in the picture with me and helping me and really like making me realize everything I've gone through, like and that it was okay and normal to kind of feel the way I was feeling and to accept it. And to kind of like once you have that acceptance, you're able to kind of look forward and move on and find find your way, I guess, and find your way back and not putting that pressure to just like it needs to happen today. Like, you know what I mean? It's like slowly getting there and slowly really I guess it's showing gratitude towards yourself, gratitude towards what I've been able to do for a living. Like I've dreamed of playing this league for forever. I've worked extremely hard and here I am, and I'm there is a challenge in front of me, and I'm kind of like second guessing, and I think it was all that kind of put things in perspective for me and helped me kind of like, I guess just kind of move on and put it past me, and then kind of like get back at it.
No, that's great, and obviously we had the treat of chatting with Dr. Steve Durant, and so backstory on that. So Steve's daughter Jackie is married to a good friend of mine, Zach McGinnis, and he gave a speech at the wedding, just talking about his daughter and their relationship. And like I called Mottau right after. I'm like, we've always said it and we've known him, but I'm like, we need to have Dr. Durant on. Like I was like in tears, but laughing and like everything, like all at once, and maybe it was the IPAs up in Maine that were affecting me too, but
Florida,
it was like,
Florida.
It was in Maine too. There you go. All roads lead to Maine. But it was, he really was. It was special, and it was so cool to, it was right around the time he came on that I think you thanked him in your retirement ceremony and everything. So it was really cool stuff, and just a great guy and a legend for sure. But I want to fast forward a little bit, talk about, obviously, you overcame your injuries, the Bruins kind of get back. Obviously you bring in Big Z, a lot of changes that you went through, but now you guys are making those playoff runs and ultimately winning the Stanley Cup. What was that experience like, and enjoying it in the city of Boston?
Yeah, it was incredible. It was special. I think like I do remember actually before we won, like maybe like in 2010 or 2009, I was watching like a documentary on the Bees and the 70s, and how there's video of them at the parade, and Bobby and Chief, and the amount of people that's there that day is like, if you guys have never seen it, you gotta like watch it. It's like, for me, like as a player, it gave me like chills, but also it gave me like a kind of like a goal in mind, right? Like it's like, okay, like this is pretty special, and this is like, let's bring that back. Like it's almost like you understand it, but you don't, and then you see it, and it's like, okay, like it's this is crazy. Like there are people care about the Bruins like deeply, and it goes back like a long time, and it's a special organization, and like
Mott's is fighting guys on other teams because of you. You know what I mean?
Later, no, it's incredible. I'm telling you, like, and even like we talked about those guys like in Providence, or like I think the first question was them, and even like all the way through, they were still like in contact with me, and like kind of like texting, and like if we were doing well, and these guys were still playing, you know what I mean? Like they were like, as you said, like they cared about the Bees, and it's special around here. Like sports it means a lot to fans and to the population in general. So it's like yeah, I mean, it was incredible, just to experience it. Obviously, like it's a dream come true. I think it's cliche. It's just how it is. Like you grew up, like you dream about, that moment and winning, and when you're able to realize that with your teammates, and it's a grind for 2 months, you go, I mean, it's a grind for the whole year. Obviously 82 games, a lot of games in a short period of time. And then you go into the playoffs, and then the level goes up a couple notches, and every game means something, and then you battle for, as I said, 2 months, go through like a laundry list of injuries for a lot of guys, and then you're able to actually like accomplish the ultimate goal is incredible. So the celebration was something I'll never forget, honestly. Like it was crazy, and we were in Vancouver. We had like I had my girlfriend, my wife now, girlfriend at the time, and my parents, my brother, they were all down, and like everyone's family was there, like in the locker room. There's people, like there were some random fans from Boston in the locker room with us. Like
I'm sure.
RA.
Yeah.
Yeah, RA made it. Yeah, exactly. And then there's, it was just like on the ice too, and I think it's just special to experience that with them because you go through like yeah, it's a roller coaster of emotions and it's yeah, it was incredible.
Mm.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, going back to your point about being from Boston and being still at the core of it a Boston fan. I kind of like constructed a visit to the Dorchester YMCA. I got up here, caught a game in every series except for Philly because you swept them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't catch any of those, but that was the one where I was moving back. But then you got Tampa and Vancouver. So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's like I'm still I went to a couple in each round actually.
Yeah.
And, we got tickets and whatever. It's just like that's just great. I'm playing for the Islanders, but yet I want you guys to absolutely pump them.
Yeah.
Just because
That's awesome.
family and friends. And whenever I played against you in Boston, it would always be like all my buddies would be like, "Hey, I hope you have a good game, but I want the Bees to win." I'm like, I totally get it. I totally get it. So like that loyalty and like what you're talking about the boys like Patty Leahy, Keith LeCoin, Dave Gove, Walshy, like all the guys that you played with in the lockout year and whatever. It's just and got to know. It's just a very cool city to be a part of. And
Yeah.
and as far as kind of putting your stamp on it, that Stanley Cup was for the ages, really. Like you guys played such a great game. Nathan Horton was a huge part of that. Him getting hit, like you guys rally around that. But it was such a, like a tight group with good leadership, good supplemental leadership, and you got Timmy Thomas kicking how he does, like the street hockey goalie he is, just at the end of the day, like it all came together and, you just must have been so proud to be a part of it and be a huge part of it more than anything. And so when you watched Bobby Orr, Chief, and those guys doing the parade, did you pinch yourself during that time and just be like, hey, kind of like, just, take a breath and stay in the present on that and like see everyone just like cheering and it was all for you guys, right?
Yeah, during the parade, it was, I did a few times. I kind of like I just looked at the sea of people and I was like, oh my God, like it's like this is actually happening, so that was, yeah, it was cool just to experience it and to take it all in and it was insane. The amount of people that was there was crazy. And you could do whatever. You had to just like you would like lift your hands up and like people would go banana. Like it was just like it was unreal.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much to hit on, and obviously you had such a great career. But I want to talk a little bit about the hockey stuff, just the personal. But like, and we've asked this question to some really good players, Hall of Famers, which you will be at some point. But the hockey sense piece of it, right? Like you were such a smart hockey player, and how did that develop for you? Was it did it come over time? Like what can you point a finger to anything particular with it?
That's a good question. I think like yeah, I think I was like reading plays. I think my game has always been to kind of like the kind of like I've never been like the guy that's like the fastest skater. I've never been the guy that's always like in your face and like like I was more like for me like the kind of like my pace was like trying to read like what's my next move instead of like just going like 100 miles an hour everywhere. Not that it's not like I know like a lot of guys can do that. I'm just saying like for myself it didn't work that way. It was more like I was kind of skating where I thought the puck was going next, and I think it's over time you kind of develop that your reads and of course sometimes you get caught like in a way cheating like because like it's that guy is that good that he just didn't make the play that you thought he was going to make, but like you know yeah, I think like it was like a hockey for me has always been like instinctual. Like I was always trying to go with instincts and like try to read plays and kind of try, like Doc Durant always says, like, you got to play with your hockey brain, right? Like, that's kind of like your bet. Like, I'm sure he talked about the red and the blue, and
Yeah.
And you're trying to be like, the more in the moment you are, the more you're going to be able to use your hockey brain, your instinct. You're not going to think, you're not going to squeeze a stick, right? So, like, for me, like, it was all about, like, yeah, being in the moment, being in, like, okay, what's coming next, like, being aware of my surroundings, and I think it's over time that you kind of develop that, and obviously a lot of coaches have helped, a lot of people have helped, and it's, whether it's the system and whatnot, but I think, like, at the end of the day, it was more like just the instincts.
So I'm coaching my son, and, like, talking about your game and, like, how you're coming through, and your junior coach talking about some of those kind of not intangibles, but, like, areas of the game that can be overlooked. So face-offs, right? So he's a centerman. You remember Marty Reisner, like, he does some stuff with the Islanders. I went to college, and he's a kind of a skills player development coach. I'm talking to him about face-offs, like, separate yourself, right? Separate yourself. And then to the group, I mean, that's just between him and our conversations. But, like, I'm talking to the group about turning your brain on, right? Turn your brain on and, identify and catalog, file away situational tendencies. What worked well in this situation? What didn't work well? And then you can start making better decisions and, looking over your shoulder, gaining information, because that doesn't take skill, but then it allows you to anticipate the next move, right? Make a better play. So, like, instinctually, you probably had that, like, already going, but then as far as, like, sometimes how easy is it sometimes to, it's like a children's book, be like, oh yeah, I got my stick over here, he wants to go this way, and then you just pick off a pass, maybe you knock it out of the air or whatever. So it's just like, maybe that experience helps you along the way. But, I'm trying to help these younger kids. They're, 17, 18 years old, and want to try and give them the answers to the test, and then you just start, like, developing these habits, and then you can just, not everyone's going to take to it as much as, say you did for, your junior coach or, your development. But I would say that anticipation, that kind of filing away of information is so important, because, there's so many tendencies that happen throughout the course of a game and throughout the course of a season.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the being able to kind of, like, recognize what works and what doesn't. And I think, like, to me, like, hockey is a game of details, right? Like, it's all about details everywhere, all over the ice. And I think, like, whoever is able to do their details right usually get rewarded as a team, get rewarded, right? Like, that's how. So to me, like, and I've had those conversations with a lot of guys and to myself. I feel like when you're, like, struggling and when you're not producing and the puck is not going in, what do? You press. You try to get to the areas where you're not supposed to go, and you cheat. You don't take care of the details that actually leads you to get the result usually, right? So to me, like, it's always anyways, that's what worked for me, was go back to your details. That was always something I would tell myself, worry about winning this face-off. If you win this face-off, you start with the puck. Go and, go in the right areas. Stay back, as an F3. Don't cheat in. Because, like, I feel like every time you take care of your details, the puck falls on your stick at the right place at the right moment when it's needed, when it's time to score. If you don't do that, that's when you get away from your game. That's when you keep thinking. That's when you're pressing. That's when you're in your head and you're not using your hockey brain. So I think, to me, it's always about details. Like, if you're struggling, if you feel like, it's not going the way it's supposed to, I would always tell myself, go back to, face off, good sticks, stick in the lanes, like, eventually, I'm telling you, it just like falls back in place because you're at the right place. You're not cheating. You're not like forcing things. And I think that's something for kids to remember, because like, as you said before, like people think about points, think about, the end result a lot. And I think that's what usually matters for statistics and what looks good, but then like what's really most efficient and makes you win hockey games. And I think to me is details. And I think it's an important reminder for anyone that plays hockey, I think.
Love it.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Clip it.
Yeah, like seriously, they'll be on the socials.
Yeah. No, it's so good. And I mean, you brought it up too. It's just like, I had a conversation with a parent on my 12-year-old teams, and you can feel it, like kid pressing a little bit, and I'm like, he just needs to relax, have fun, and just play the game the right way. And if you're like, I compared it to golf. I'm like, if you're just off the green and you're like squeezing the you sand wedge like super tight, like I gotta put this thing close, I gotta put it close, I gotta put it close. What are you gonna do? Like, you're gonna probably either duff it or just scull it. Like, it's not gonna happen. But if you go up there and have a relaxed approach and just like, all right, I've done this, I've worked on this 1,000 times, the ball's gonna end up going in the hole, or the puck's gonna go into the net, right? And there's nobody better at it during your storied career at you think back to those goals, right? Cup winning goals, goals against Toronto, right? Like it just, you were in the right place at the right time, not diving in because, I have to get overly aggressive here. It's like you kind of, it goes back to the beginning, right? Stayed in the present and just like, all right, I'm not going to press and good things will happen.
Yeah,
no, exactly. And that's the thing. Like, you're like, okay, like, like it seems like there's an opening, so you want to kind of like get in, but then it's like, no, like I should be F3 because you got to think about also like defense. Like you're on the offense, but you still got to think about like both ways of like, you think about winning the game, right? Like you think about like, I'm trying to win. I just don't. It's not just about scoring a goal. It's like maybe your teammate will score a goal because you were high. So I think like there's a lot of that's involved in like the game, like where like, okay, I'm staying high, it's going to help him, then he's going to reload, then I can go. It's like reading off each other, but also doing the right things, like, and yeah, I can't say enough about that, because I feel like it's worked time and time again. When I was pressing, I was in my head, or like it was always going back to, okay, like I'm going to be in the moment and I'm going to play how I'm supposed to play. And it would just, fall in place.
Yeah. Oh, those are all great points. And well, I just want to like touch on one last thing here, like just being traded to the Bruins and being in the locker room with you and Z as captains. But it was the year after the cup win. But what I wanted to talk about was you guys, had the letters on your jerseys and you guys led by example, right? Not overly vocal. Z wasn't overly vocal. But there was a great supplemental leadership group in that room, like the Chris Kellys and Gregory Campbell, Sean Thornton, Seidenberg, you can go down the list, right? And that was like so important for me to see, because the accountability came from the room. And I think that accountability has to come from somewhere. And like, we're not so much talking about, the youth level, but like it can be implemented at that, in the certain age groups, right? As they get a little bit older, it can come from, so in Jersey, it actually came from like Lou Limero, the GM, right? That's like the accountability, but there was accountability. There was no gray areas. It was black and white, if you're doing it right, if you're doing it wrong, but there was accountability. You go to the Island, there wasn't much accountability. It was kind of like, kind of in flux, it was like an organization in kind of like a rebuild, but get to the Bruins, and the accountability that came from the locker room, from your peers, a healthy accountability, was so valuable. Like it was like refreshing for me to see, because it's not like finger pointing, because everyone was doing the right things. And it started with you and Z, and it came, to that supplemental group. And then, Mashi was young, Sagan was young, but like those guys knew the right things to do. So Mashi
Yeah.
now as the captain is he understands the right way to lead because he's been through Z, he's been through you, but he's seen this really, evolution of, leadership and accountability the correct way. So can you just talk to us about, and our listeners, about Mashi and how excited you are to, pass over the sea to him?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm extremely happy for him. He's, obviously a good friend of mine, and I'm impressed and amazed with, his growth, over from his first year to now, and he's become, obviously an amazing player, but beyond that, an amazing person and leader and family man, and a great friend. So like I can't. He deserves it. I know he's going to be great, and he's just going to be himself. He's going to lead the way that he should be leading. There's no right or wrong answers on that as long as you do it for the right reasons and you speak from the heart and you listen to that inside voice that tells you when it's time and when it's not. And to go back to what you were saying about the accountability, I think like for me, like leadership is all about leading by committee. I think like it's not a dictatorship, and it shouldn't be all about one guy that tells others what or how it should be. I think it's everyone that should take pride in who we are and what's our why and who what type of team do we want to be, what's the identity. And if you have those conversations with your teammates or at least with your leadership group, then like I feel like it kind of like makes a huge difference, because like it's from within, right? Like it's like it comes from the guys, it comes from like, okay, like this is how we want the locker room to be, this is how or what we want to accomplish. And by having that, I think that's how you have the accountability piece, because we've set boundaries, we've set rules within the locker room, and this is how things are going to go here. And you don't want to be that guy that kind of lets down and doesn't pull the load, So it speaks volume compared to like coaches or management, because it's coming from your buddies and your peers and the guys that you actually sacrifice with. So I think like that to me, like that accountability that comes from within the locker room is so important and viable to be a successful team.
Yeah, 100%. And it's not, you can't just fabricate that. It has to be, the right people, the right character players in that group, in that room, because it is the most healthy, but sometimes it's just not there, like, if some guy's doing one thing, whatever, like, then the finger pointing starts, and that's like zero chance. But what I've, personally experienced and what you kind of helped cultivate for so many years was that, peer accountability, which is the most healthy, which, it was just a pleasure to be a part of.
Yeah, we had a great time. It was fun to have you.
Yeah. Well, we honestly would love to keep you for another 6 hours, but we know that we can't. But we do have, our producer Jersey Shore, who he named his dog after you. Yep. So we need to let him ask a question, and hopefully this is appropriate. Right, Jersey?
It's totally appropriate. Patrice, thank you again so much for joining us.
Of course.
You're a future Hockey Hall of Famer, Stanley Cup champion. The things that you've done, that you brought to the city, your leadership, your work ethic is
all right. Unmatched. Get to the question, Jersey. Come on.
So my question is, going back to 2011, like, can you ever imagine or describe like what it's like to win 3 Game 7s on the way to a Stanley Cup final after unfortunately going up 3-0 to Philly the year before and then losing in Game 7? Like, what was that like? How did that whole locker room come together and just be like, we are not blowing this?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think like even like going back to the year before, in 2010, like I think it kind of built us a little bit to have that killer instinct and not take 3 wins for granted. You know what I mean? Like you need that 4th win, and it's actually the hardest to get. And the Montreal series didn't start as like we thought. You know, we went down 2-0 at home. So you could tell, you know, like the outside pressure was kind of like, it was definitely there, and the finger pointing from a lot of people. But I really think like I think we got into our bubble, you know, like we just got into like we cared for. We talked about the accountability. You talked about the locker room that we had. We just cared about each other so much that it was like, it's April. You know, like there's no way, like I'm not going home now. Like I'm just not ready to go home. And that's kind of how it just started. It was more like, let's just worry about winning one game, you know, like, and then we got to, I'm going back to your question. We got to game 7s, and yeah, it was more like the demeanor that we had. It was more like the swagger where like, we just had confidence that, you know, we've been through a lot. You know, we came back 2-0 against Montreal. Same thing as Vancouver. We came back, you know, we were down 2-0 in the series, and you get back, and it's almost like it gives you like that confidence that even like no matter what happens in that one game, like, you know, we're gonna find a way to overcome that. So I think like we did have that mental toughness that we built within, because of the way that the playoffs unfolded, and yeah, we just rallied behind each other, and the coaching staff, and everyone was involved, and we all worked towards the same goal. And obviously, can't say enough about a lot of guys in that locker room, but and the way that Timmy played, and you know, there's a lot of intent, like things that happened and unfolded that that could have like could be the reason, but I think it was more like a lot of things, and everyone kind of bringing it, you know, like it was just not about one or two guys. It was, you know, like really like everyone kind of contributing and being at their best.
Was that game 7 against? Oh, sorry, Mott. Was that game 7 against Tampa like one of the cleanest hockey games that's ever been played in the history? Like, what were you guys saying on the bench during that? Like, no penalties, 0-0 the entire game. Like, describe that for us.
Yeah, no, it was great. You know, the refs just let us play, you know, like, and I think like sometimes, and obviously they do their jobs, but sometimes, you know, like they just didn't get in the way, you know, they just like, it was two teams going at it like hard. Like there was like some big hits, some like, but it was, as you said, it was clean, you know, it was like, it was just playoff hockey, like high intensity and a battle of will for the full 60. I think we scored late in the third, and you know, a 1-0 game, but I think it was an entertaining 1-0 game. It wasn't one of those, you know, like snooze fest. You know, it was like a fun game to watch, and it was a fun game to be a part of and to play.
So my question was, you know, as you learn in, you know, kind of from your maybe lockout days, you know, you're a leader now. Are you glad that you didn't have everyone dye their hair blonde?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was a bad look, man.
Hey, buddy, that's like the only like picture that comes out of Providence. But listen, I played there for I played 60 some games plus playoffs, and that's the only picture they found. Like, as I said, you know, like I'm all for the team. You know, I'm always up for whatever. If it's gonna bring the boys together, like let's do it. So
yeah.
It's a terrible look.
Yeah. Did you have more fun? Did you have more fun as a blonde or no? Because I hear blondes have more fun.
Yeah, no, it was all business. All business.
That's great. Yeah. I think Corona sent me a picture too. I was like, oh, that's kind of gross, Bergie. You know,
I know. Yeah, tough
good
look for sure.
Hey, he's blaming some of his hair loss on that dye job, which is like an absolute lie.
Bad lemon juice. Bad lemon juice.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, I don't know if that's the reason, but
no, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh God. Well, stuff. Patrice, this has been fantastic. Well, you know, I think we just have to go for part 2 in a few you know, like maybe once the kids are really ingrained in the hockey, and now you get like a couple seasons under your belt, we're gonna have to check
Bring
back
it
in
back.
and be like, all right,
All
where are
right.
we at right now with
With
the
the
youth
rink
hockey
checks.
experience?
Yeah.
Where's the head at? But no, we like I said, we can't thank you enough. This has been fantastic. It was a treat to watch you play, and we're looking forward to the future and what brings to view, and obviously the Bruins Hall of Fame and all that stuff, and the NHL Hockey Hall of Fame someday. So this has been really special. So thank you for taking the time.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me. It was a fun chatting with you guys, and it was an honor to be on the pod.
Yeah, thanks again, Bergie, and I can't wait to see what the next chapter holds for you, bud.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Mats.